This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Looks like we're going to be reporting on President Trump's tariffs for some time to come. Yesterday, the administration said it would grant a 1-month delay on its 25% tariffs applied to vehicles imported from Mexico and Canada. The delay will only apply to vehicles that comply with the USMCA Free Trade Agreement, but that's almost all of them. Automakers were quick to praise the president. The American Automotive Policy Council, which represents GM, Ford, and Stellantis, thanked him. Stellantis put out a separate statement saying it would increase production in the U.S., and so will Volvo. Earlier this week, Reuters also reported that Honda would move production of the Civic Hybrid from Mexico to its Greensburg plant in Indiana. But in a statement, Honda said it made no such announcement and pointed out that it's been building the Civic Hybrid in Indiana since 2008. Well, here's our Autoline insight. Automakers can run more overtime and maybe even add a third shift at some plants to increase production relatively quickly. But it's unlikely that they'll be building new assembly plants in the U.S. anytime soon, despite the president's claims. A couple of exceptions could be Audi and Porsche, which have no U.S. production. If the president follows through on his threat to match Europe's 10% tariff, we think they'll probably just eat the cost. But a 25% tariff could have Audi and Porsche looking for a U.S. assembly plant. Maybe they should consider giving Foxconn a call about its plant in Lordstown, Ohio. Porsche could even build disassembled versions of its vehicles there. But whichever way it goes, it will likely take years for most of these changes to take place. And speaking of Foxconn, it's interested in a partnership with Nissan. And now Automotive News reports that former Nissan executive and Foxconn's current chief electric vehicle strategy officer, Jun Seki, is a dark horse candidate to become Nissan's next CEO. The automaker's current CEO, Makoto Uchida, is expected to step down because of slumping sales and profits at the company. Seki was one of 3 executives who helped run Nissan after former CEO Carlos Ghosn's arrest in 2018. And he also worked at Nissan's alliance partner Renault. But Seki is a long shot because he's viewed as disloyal after he abruptly left Nissan in 2020, shortly after being promoted to Vice Chief Operating Officer. Nissan's Chief Financial Officer, Jeremy Papin, and Nissan's Chief Performance Officer, not sure how to really pronounce this guy's name, but it's something along the lines of Guillaume Cartier, are viewed as the favorites to replace Uchida. And now let's stick with Japan for a moment, because Japanese automotive journalists just voted on something that has got to worry Japanese automakers. BYD only started selling vehicles in Japan 2 years ago, but it's already winning over the car critics. Last year, the BYD Dolphin won the Japan Annual EV Awards, and this year, the BYD Seal took home the honor. The Seal finished ahead of the Honda N-Van E and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. The jury said the model has, quote, an extremely beautiful design and that it sets an industry benchmark with its high-quality driving experience. The Seal also won the title of the top 10 best models of the 2024-2025 Japan Car of the Year, which is awarded by the Japan Car of the Year Selection Committee.
Developing today's vehicles, issues can happen in an instant. What good is knowing your problems without the data to solve them? Meet Wireless Neovi Cloud, your secure off-the-shelf solution, empowering real-time collaboration for quick resolution. With Wireless Neovi Cloud, your team can prevent issues before they can escalate. Driver communication data and remote diagnostics to analyze and resolve your problems using OTA, allowing your executives oversight throughout the process. Wireless Neovi Cloud, your vehicle update solution in production and on the road. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
Volkswagen says it's coming out with 9 new models by the end of 2027, and one of those will be the production version of the ID Everyone concept that just debuted. It's kind of like the all-electric successor to the Up, which went out of production in 2023. However, the ID Everyone is actually a little bit bigger than the Up, while smaller than the current Polo and the ID2 All concept, which we think will become the next-gen Polo. The ID2 All is one of those other 9 new models, and it comes out next year with a starting price around 25,000 euros. The smaller ID Everyone will be VW's entry into its EV lineup when it launches in 2027, with a starting price around 20,000 euro. But both models are based on the new front-wheel drive version of the automaker's MEB platform. Although VW says the ID Everyone, quote, will be the first model in the entire group to use a fundamentally new, particularly powerful software architecture. Reports claim this is the new software system that VW is developing with Rivian. Volkswagen is paying $5.8 billion over the next several years for that tech, and 2027 seems like a reasonable amount of time to implement it into its vehicles. The entry-level EV concept also features a newly developed electric motor that makes 70 kilowatts, or about 94 horsepower, and is estimated to have at least 250 kilometers of range. Volkswagen says the model is, quote, from Europe for Europe, and we saw one report that said it will be built in Germany. Not all automakers in Europe are on board with the EU CO2 rules possibly being relaxed. Volvo CEO Jim Rowan says he's, quote, extremely disappointed about the leeway the EU would be giving automakers. He says the industry was given years of time to prepare for the standards, and that if a small company like Volvo can make the investment to meet the targets, then, quote, certainly bigger companies could have done that too. But Rowan could also be upset about Volvo possibly losing out on earning money from pooling CO2 emissions with other automakers. UBS Group estimated that Volvo could have earned as much as 300 million euros. But if the CO2 rules are relaxed, non-compliant automakers may rethink their pooling plans. Tesla sales have seen big drops in Germany, France, China, and other major markets, and now comes word from Australia that they were down 72% last month, with the Model 3 down over 81%. But even so, the 3 was still the best-selling sedan ahead of the Toyota Camry. And while it was a bad month for EVs overall in Australia, with sales down nearly 44%, Tesla's massive drop-off is in line with what we're seeing in other markets. Here's some interesting stats showing Formula One's rapid growth. The series had been showing steady increases since 2016 when it brought in $570 million until COVID hit hard in 2020. But things really ramped up after that, and in 2023, F1 raked in over $3.2 billion. It also claims its total fan base is over 700 million people, and that 1.5 billion people watched its races, while 6.5 million attended them. These numbers come from Honda, who supplies engines to the series, and is also celebrating the 60th anniversary of its very first F1 win. It took the checkered flag at the Mexican Grand Prix in 1965. And now with F1 growing so much, Honda is thinking of launching its own memorabilia business, which could sell spare engines and parts, like a V10 used for Ayrton Senna's 1990 McLaren. And speaking of racing, both Honda and Chevy are entering vehicles in the Mint 400, an off-road race that kicks off this weekend. But their vehicles couldn't be much different. Honda is competing in both the stock production truck and the unlimited truck two-wheel drive classes with the new Passport Trail Sport, although the unlimited version is heavily modified and only takes inspiration from the production model. Chevy, on the other hand, is entering an 1,100 horsepower version of the Silverado EV into the race. The main upgrades include prototype Multimatic adaptive spool valve shocks and 37-inch off-road tires. While we might not see this truck in showrooms, Chevy is applying the Trail Boss name to the Silverado EV with a more off-road focused version of the truck that comes out this summer. With the Trump administration's policies literally changing from day to day, how do you put a strategy together if you're an automaker to deal with that? Mark Wakefield of Alex Partners and David Welch from Bloomberg will give us their insights on today's Autoline After Hours. We'll also dive into top stories on Tesla, Rivian, and Stellantis, so be sure to join John and Gary at 3 p.m. Eastern Time today. But that's a wrap for this show, and I hope to see you later today.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Intrepid Control Systems. Over-the-air engineering boost your game. And by Teijin Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teijin Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.